about is how we can leverage the digital thread to provide information to manufacturing operations. So one of the big issues, and there's been lots of talks about this throughout this week, is how there's lots of forces driving change. Okay, lots of digitalisation presentations this week. We've seen a couple of them already. Okay, so we've got the workforce is changing, supply chains have been a big issue, particularly COVID highlighted that. There's software going into the development of everything. We've seen quite a bit of talk on sustainability. That's a big requirement. More and more of our customers are saying, their customers are asking them about their footprint and what goes into their products. And then also how we can optimise service. So manufacturers are spending big amounts of money to help solve these problems, right? So $500 billion in digital transformation initiatives amongst manufacturing globally. So lots of money being spent out there. And what they're spending on is a lot of systems, right, to help with that. And there's really three main sort of strategic systems, and actually Tim mentioned a few of these in his presentation just before. So we've got PLM solutions, okay, so that's to really manage all of that data, right, manage all that CAD and document information you're creating, all the product structures, all the software that you might be building goes into help defining that product, all of your requirements, the life cycle information about that, what's it like in conceptual stages through into manufacturing and final end of life obsolescence, the bills of materials that we're using, that we're shipping out, we're creating for customers, and what maybe some of our process definitions, right? Here's the product, how we're going to put this thing together out on the shop floor, okay? ERP is another big one. There's ERP vendors here. I've walked on the floor. Tim was mentioning ERP solutions, right? So that's more concerned with operational stuff, things like finance, purchasing, HR, order management, maybe predictive stuff on that. And Microsoft talked about that earlier this week. Forecasting and planning, okay? Production planning and scheduling, right? Making sure things are going to happen. Managing all our inventory and our costs and everything else. So logistics and distribution, okay? And then we have, supply management as well, okay? And then we have MES systems, right? That actually handle what we're doing out there on the shop floor, okay? So all our production scheduling, things like work instructions, work orders, execution and management, okay? So collecting all of the data about what's going on for our quality systems, okay? So tracking what we've actually built, so we know what we've actually shipped to a customer. So when we've got active service to deal with that, we know what's being done. All that calibration that we're doing for all those systems, right? And inspection, both inwards and outwards inspection as well. So these are three of the big enterprise systems a lot of companies are using. I'm guessing most of you probably have some of those, maybe all of them, right? And companies are spending big money on these digital transformations to move into these systems, okay? But one of the big problems is you end up with a whole lot of siloed bits and pieces of information that don't really talk to each other. So, can you trust what's in there? Okay, so maybe I've got this lovely PLM vault of all of my data. Okay, hopefully it's all good and accurate and up to date, right? But what do I do with that data? The ERP people need information from that. So we've got that classic over-the-wall example, right? Let's just chuck it over them and let them deal with it. So lots of people typing in spreadsheets and all sorts of other things across systems. Okay, so and that leads to all sorts of inefficiencies, right? Lack of speed. Inefficiency, quality issues as well, okay, and compliance, okay, so in regulated industries, med dev, defense, things like that, compliance is a huge thing you need to track and keep going, okay. So really, there's this concept of digital thread, and lots of people have spoken about it already this week. So the idea of that is really tracking all of that, okay, right throughout the whole life cycle, from the starting planning stages through into design. Once you get into actual manufacturing that, you get to the field of operating that. Okay, so maybe we're remotely monitoring that through IoT, how we maintain that, how we sustain it, and then we can use maybe that information we've gathered out there digitally to help us inform the next design, how we can make improvements to our products. Okay, so there's a whole lot of information that happens at all those stages, but what we want to do is have a flow of that information. That's what we talk about the digital thread, right? It's really the key to getting that value. It's not just having these little silos, but having the ability to follow that anywhere throughout the whole system, right? The right people can access it whenever they need it. Okay? So there's a few things to help do that, okay? So the first thing is really to identify and make sure you've got the right data in the right tool, right? Because all these systems have their place in an organisation, and yes, there is overlap between them, okay? So the PLM vendors will say one thing, the ERP vendors will say another, right? But they are the right tools for the right job. Okay, so it's really making sure you've got the right data, good quality data in that right tool. Okay, so once we've done that, then we can look at how we're going to integrate that to make things better. Okay, so the big thing is to establish that authoritative source of the truth. Okay, where does that information need to live? Which system owns it? Okay, so in PLM, as I said, there's lots of information there. Part masters, version control, all that documentation, classification, lifecycle information, requirements, simulations, lots of CAD data and things like that that live in this system. Right? Engineering typically is the ones using the PLM system. Okay? Inside our ERP systems, we've got all of our production planning, forecasting, cost information, cost tracking, all that kind of stuff. A lot of transactional data and business data, right? And then we've got our MES system, which is more our shop floor. Okay, what are we producing? What's the schedule? What are we doing right now? Okay, so it's how we combine these together. And that's really what's leading into this Industry 4 concept, right? The ability to have that smarter view of what's happening outside in the factory and the products. Okay. So the thing is to get these systems sharing information, right? Bring these bi-directional process flows that aren't somebody reading a value or downloading a CSV out of one system and then typing that into another system, right? Because I'm sure we've all seen that happen, right? Maybe some of you here in this room do that, okay? So the idea is to create those bi-directional process flows, to get that information going from one to another, not having people go and ask someone and give them bits of information manually. So we get that flow going, because the other thing that really messes all of this stuff up is when changes come through, right? So change comes through, where does that change happen? How do we make sure that all the other areas know what's going on with that change, right? Engineering makes a change that needs to flow into ERP. So coaching knows what's going to happen with that. Maybe it's going to affect the manufacturing scheduling. So we need to have that flow going. All right. So some examples of that. Okay. So from PLM into ERP and ERP into PLM. Right. So PLM is typically where companies are managing all of that product development data. Right. The bombs, everything else. So we want to know, okay, what is the set phase? What is the part revision that we're going to make? Right? The last thing we want to do is make the wrong revision for the customer. Okay? We want to make sure our change orders are there. What's the bomb that we're going to be manufacturing? What's the product looking like? Okay? In the ERP system, we're primarily, not everything, but primarily concerned with costing information, right? So what's the cost for this? Okay? Engineering wants to know, how much is this going to cost when we build it? Okay, what's the cost going to be to our customers for this product? We don't want to make something that's completely uncompetitive. Okay, on our PLM to MES systems. Okay, so again, PLM contains a lot of information about the product that we're making. Okay, we might be defining, what quality checks we need to do on that. There might be in a drawing, it might be something a little bit more machine readable, PMI information. Okay, but first article inspection, making sure we've got that right quality information. What are our assembly instructions? Because obviously we can use the 3D model that we've built in the CAD tool to then work out how to make this thing and put it together. There'll be a lot of NC controllers, plenty of NC machines out here today, right? So what are the numerical processes we're using to make that, okay? So all of that feeds into our manufacturing system. How are we going to make this thing, right? And so the PLM side of things, also from the MES side of things, we're then going, well, we've made this, here's what we've made, here's the configuration, here's any particular quality or non-conformance information. So maybe we need to use that to improve our design process or design of the product. Okay. And then across the bottom, ERP to MES and MES to ERP. Okay. So we do a lot of production scheduling inside our ERP systems typically. We do the execution of that. So how many components did we make in this shift? How many are we going to consume to complete the build? What are our order demands? What do we need to plan out for? There's all that information that these systems can share with each other. Okay? Alright. So the idea of this is to really get that value, that digital information that's sitting there in these systems, to get that flowing throughout. So, these are some studies. I'm talking later about some more details on that. But getting all that digital information in order, right? So making sure you've got the right product information that people are using, okay? So reducing the time to market, getting things out there faster, decreasing the cost of all the resources you need to do all of that side of things. Extending that PLM data into the factory, right? All that valuable data that engineering is like, we make that visible to people to use that when they're putting these things together. Okay, so reducing cost of non-quality events. Okay, first pass improvement rates. Okay, and driving reuse of existing data there as well. Okay, that's what I want to talk about today. I was very quick. Okay, making out a little bit of time there. If you want to know more, come and visit us at stand MS460. If you look out the window there, we're on the corner right there, so we're not that far away. So happy to show you some of these tools. For example, showing PLM data on the shop floor with an Integra kiosk. That's there. These guys are also here. So a more robust screen. How do you display this information digitally? Right, that's one of the big concerns. I don't put laptops on every desk. Here's an industrial piece of equipment that's designed for this kind of thing. Or maybe you want to overlay that PLM information. On top of the real world object through something like augmented reality. It doesn't want to play. Oh well. Come and see it live on the screen.
Please put your hands together for Allan. If you have any questions, just going to hang around for a bit. As you said, the stand is just through there, so you can have a conversation and find out any further detail.